They called her just maintenance. They called her the girl who cleaned the aircraft but did not understand them. They called her the one who fetched tools, the one who knew her place on the ground. They called her support staff, background worker, nothing special, nothing remarkable. They said she was never meant for the sky. But everything changed the moment she rose, brushed the dust off her uniform, looked those same people in the eyes and said with a calm and steady voice that echoed louder than any engine on that base that she could fly the Hog. In that moment the entire room paused as if the world itself had forgotten how to breathe. The label they had given her cracked and fell apart like old paint on steel, exposing the truth hidden beneath. She had never been just maintenance. She had been preparing for something bigger all along, waiting for the right moment to prove that the ground she worked on had been the foundation for her flight. She began as someone unnoticed. In the early mornings she would walk onto the flight line before the sun had even stretched across the horizon. The noise of tools clanking against metal became a rhythm she knew better than any song. She studied the way the A10 Thunderbolt rested before takeoff, tracing every bolt with her eyes, memorizing every hydraulic whisper, learning the personality of each aircraft like someone learning the expressions of a close friend. While others saw routine maintenance, she saw a language. While they saw a simple job, she saw a system of power and purpose. Every smudge of grease on her hands was another sentence in that language, another piece of knowledge that brought her closer not just to maintaining the aircraft but understanding it in a way that most pilots never did. Still, no matter how skilled she became, the world around her insisted on keeping her grounded. They dismissed her abilities, placed her in the shadow of the runway and told her to stay there. The joke was always the same, that she belonged with the wrenches and not the wings. They claimed she should not dream beyond what they believed she was built for. But she never argued, not because she agreed but because she was choosing her moment. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. She kept learning, kept studying, kept watching every takeoff and landing, knowing that one day the chance would come to show that her understanding went deeper than the manuals, deeper than the routines, deeper than the assumptions others piled on her shoulders. She watched the pilots walk past her every day with their helmets under their arms, their confidence shining as brightly as the sun bouncing off the canopy. She respected them but she did not envy them. Instead, she studied them. She observed the decisions they made before stepping into the cockpit, the way they spoke about the aircraft, the details they focused on. She quietly took notes, building a comprehension of what true situational awareness meant. And in the late hours, when the hangar was quiet and the world slept, she would sit inside the empty cockpit of an A10 with the canopy open above her like a doorway to another life. She would not press buttons or pretend to fly. She would simply sit, breathing in the atmosphere, feeling the placement of each control, imagining the flow of motion that turned machinery into flight. To her, the seat was not a place of fantasy. It was a classroom. People often underestimate those who watch in silence, those who learn without announcing it, those who gather knowledge piece by piece until they know as much as anyone who has worn wings for years. She was one of those people and her patience was her greatest strength. She knew that real preparation does not rush. Real preparation does not brag. Real preparation grows quietly until it becomes impossible to ignore. Her turning point came on a day when one of the pilots was grounded unexpectedly and the unit faced the possibility of canceling a major readiness evaluation. Everyone panicked, unsure whether they could adjust in time. It was then that she stepped forward. The room fell silent when she said she could fly the Hog. Her voice was firm but not boastful. Some laughed, thinking she was joking. Others stared, thinking she had lost her mind. But she remained steady, explaining that she had been studying the systems for years, that she knew the aircraft inside and out, not only from the perspective of maintenance but from the perspective of flight control, engine management, emergency recovery, and aerial handling. She listed facts so clearly that even the most experienced pilot raised an eyebrow. When someone asked her how she expected to take off, she calmly explained the step-by-step process better than half the pilots in that room could have. When they questioned her ability to maneuver, she broke down the physics of turn coordination and energy management as if she had taught the subject. The room shifted. Doubt began to transform into curiosity. What they had dismissed as impossible suddenly seemed worth considering. And when the commanding officer asked her a final question about emergency landing protocol, her answer was so precise that even he could not find a flaw. This is how transformation begins. Not with a shout but with truth spoken so clearly that even those who refuse to listen cannot deny it. Her journey toward mastery did not begin the day she stepped forward. It began long before that with the quiet decision to expand who she was beyond what others expected. Growth is rarely loud. Sometimes it happens in whispers, in the moments when no one is watching, when the only motivation comes from inside. She grew through deliberate practice, pushing herself even when no one rewarded her. She grew by confronting fear, knowing that fear was not a barrier but a signpost pointing to the direction she needed to move toward. She grew by making mistakes behind closed hangar doors where she corrected herself again and again until accuracy replaced uncertainty. She understood that becoming capable of something extraordinary requires patience. She accepted setbacks as tutors, not roadblocks. She stayed grounded not because she lacked ambition but because she was building strength where others assumed she was standing still. And when the moment came to rise, she did not need to announce her readiness. Her actions spoke for her. What made her powerful was not the aircraft she hoped to fly but the mindset she had built over years of resilience. She refused to carry bitterness toward those who underestimated her. Instead, she used that energy to fuel her commitment. She turned every insult into focus. Every dismissal became motivation. Every barrier became a challenge she was determined to overcome. And in doing so, she discovered that true capability does not depend on who gives permission. True capability grows from the fire within. The first time she took hold of the control stick during training, everything in her felt at home. She already knew the aircraft's heartbeat. She knew how the engines sounded at idle versus climb power. She recognized the tremor of the wings during sharp turns. The trainers were astonished at how naturally she adapted. What they thought would take her weeks took her days. What they expected her to struggle with she mastered quickly because she had already spent years absorbing the logic behind every system. She did not learn to fly solely by learning to fly. She learned to fly by understanding every piece of the machine as an extension of herself. The Hog is not an easy aircraft. It is rugged, unforgiving, and built for missions that push pilots to their limits. But she handled it with a mix of respect and confidence. She treated the aircraft not as a beast to tame but as a partner. She listened to it, responded to it, understood it. That connection gave her an advantage that even experienced pilots admired. They saw in her something rare, not just skill but harmony. As her training progressed, she faced obstacles designed to test her judgment. She encountered crosswind landings that required sharp instinct. She faced emergency scenarios where she had only seconds to decide the right course of action. She navigated low-altitude maneuvers that demanded precision so exact that a single mistake could ruin the entire flight. Yet she stayed calm, recalling every piece of knowledge she had stored over the years. She trusted her preparation and her preparation carried her. The day she completed her evaluation, the instructor stood at the edge of the runway watching her land with flawless control. When the aircraft rolled to a stop and she climbed down the ladder, she expected applause or celebration. Instead, the base was silent for a moment, then one of the pilots stepped forward, saluted her, and said she was no longer the girl from maintenance. She was a pilot of the Hog. The title she had been denied for so long was now hers, not because she demanded it but because she proved she deserved it. Her journey became an example for everyone around her. She showed that labels are not permanent. She showed that starting from a lower position does not mean staying there. She showed that knowledge can be built quietly and powerfully. She showed that resilience is stronger than assumption. And she showed that sometimes the people who seem the least likely to rise are the ones who soar the highest when given the chance. This experience taught her that every person carries two identities, the one given by others and the one shaped by themselves. The first may be small, limiting, insulting, or inaccurate. The second can be powerful, expansive, and transformative. She learned to stop carrying the weight of the first identity and invest in the second. Once she did that, no amount of doubt from others could stop her. Her journey also revealed the importance of humility. Even as she rose to heights others never expected, she never forgot where she came from. She remembered the early mornings on the flight line, the long nights in the hangar, the smell of jet fuel on her uniform. She remembered the people who encouraged her quietly and those who discouraged her loudly. She remembered every step because each one had shaped the pilot she became. Rather than distancing herself from her past, she embraced it. She carried her maintenance background like a badge of honor, knowing it gave her a depth of understanding few pilots had. Her story became a lesson in perseverance. It taught that growth requires faith in oneself even when others fail to see potential. It showed that the path to achievement is rarely direct. Sometimes you must walk through shadows before stepping into the light. Sometimes you must start on the ground before you can earn your wings. And sometimes the thing people believe you cannot do is exactly the thing you were born to accomplish. When she spoke about her journey later, she described it not as a fight against others but as a journey toward her own potential. She explained that the world often underestimates quiet people, especially those who work behind the scenes. But quiet does not mean incapable. Quiet does not mean weak. Quiet means focused. It means listening. It means gathering the strength that will one day become undeniable. Her rise also highlighted the importance of preparation. She never relied on luck or opportunity alone. She built her readiness every day, knowing that the moment would come when she needed to step forward. Preparation gives courage. Preparation turns fear into action. Preparation makes the impossible achievable. Without preparation, chances slip through fingers. With preparation, chances become milestones. The people around her eventually realized that capability has no appearance. Potential has no uniform. Talent has no label. They saw that no one should be limited by the expectations of others. When they looked at her, they no longer saw just maintenance. They saw a pilot who earned her place through dedication so unwavering that even doubt could not bend it. Her journey is a reminder that every person has untapped potential waiting to be recognized. Sometimes life places you in the background so you can learn every angle before stepping into the spotlight. Sometimes life gives you a role that seems smaller so you can grow skills bigger than anyone expects. And sometimes life waits for you to say the words that change everything. Her words were simple: I can fly the hog. But those words carried a lifetime of preparation, resilience, and self-belief. Her story encourages others to rise when the moment calls. It teaches that you do not need approval to pursue your dreams. You do not need permission to grow. You do not need validation to become extraordinary. The only requirement is the decision to transform yourself from the inside out. When you choose growth over fear, action over doubt, and discipline over comfort, you become unstoppable. This truth echoes beyond aviation. It applies to every career, every passion, every ambition. People will try to define you by your starting point. They will label you by what they see on the surface. They will assume your dreams are too big, your goals too ambitious, your abilities too small. But you are not defined by their assumptions. You are defined by your choices. You decide who you are becoming. You decide what you are capable of. You decide when it is time to rise. The journey to greatness does not begin when others believe in you. It begins when you believe in yourself. She believed, even when no one else did. Even when no one imagined she could rise. Even when she stood alone at the edge of a dream no one thought she could reach. That belief gave her strength to step forward and say the words that shook the room. She proved that the most powerful transformation happens when you stop accepting the limitations others place on you. She proved that knowledge gathered with patience becomes power. She proved that preparation turns the impossible into the attainable. She proved that humility and confidence can coexist. She proved that anyone, no matter where they start, can rise to a place they once only dreamed of. She also learned that rising is not a single moment. It is a continuous journey. Even after earning her wings, she continued to study, continued to grow, continued to refine her skills. She approached every challenge with the same determination she had when she sat quietly in the cockpit years earlier. She never forgot that mastery is an ongoing pursuit, not a final destination. Her presence on the flight line eventually inspired others who had been overlooked. They saw her transformation and began to believe in their own potential. They realized they did not have to remain confined to expectations others placed on them. They realized that their dreams were valid, their goals achievable, their ambitions worthy. Her rise awakened something powerful in those around her, a belief that possibility grows wherever determination is planted. In time, she became more than a symbol of personal achievement. She became a reminder that capability is often hidden beneath layers of expectation, that greatness sometimes begins in unexpected places, and that the person dismissed as just maintenance can become the one who flies the hog with mastery and purpose. Her story is not just about flying. It is about rising. It is about becoming. It is about refusing to be defined by the assumptions of others. It is about choosing growth over comfort, courage over silence, and action over doubt. It is about proving that every person has a sky waiting for them if they are willing to prepare, persist, and eventually rise. And so her journey stands as a testament to a simple truth that echoes across every runway, every workplace, every dream. You're more than the role others assign you. You're more than the limits they see. You're capable of more than they imagine. All it takes is the moment when you decide to rise, lift your head, and declare that you can fly.